for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
Welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
And my name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host.
Boy, we got quite a bit to talk about today, as it seems like we always do. Before we get started, a reminder that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. We would appreciate any help that you can give us financially. Helps us keep the show going. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws there. You can find us on the iTunes Store. Do a search under Podcast for our name. Once you find our logo, you found us. And, of course, those podcasts always go to our YouTube channel. Just do a search on YouTube for Southpaws Radio, and you'll find it there as well. Plus, you can find us on great Pacifica stations across the country, including KCEI-FM, Taos, New Mexico, KZGM, Kabul, Missouri. Last week's show downloaded by WXOJ, Valley Free Radio, 103.3, Northampton, Massachusetts, and Black Sheep Radio, WOOL, 91.5 FM, Bellows Falls, Vermont. So thank you for downloading last week's show. And, of course, you can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Monday night at 9 p.m. We're on right after Democracy Now! Make sure you check us out there as well.
So our voice is up there in Bernie country.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
Love Bernie. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know who doesn't love Bernie, and that's Hillary Clinton.
Who does she love?
Herself. The establishment, the rich.
Big Bill when he got the Huff job, right? But
yeah,
she didn't care. That didn't bother her. She wasn't going to break up with her political meal ticket.
Of course not. Why would she? Anyway, so you've actually got a story over there that you want to cover.
Speaking of Hillary,
Guardian.
Yeah. Well, the thing this week really was a expose on the game plan that Hillary had to cover her butt after the embarrassing loss in 2016. And since then, she's kept a relatively low profile, popping up only occasionally to make out-of-touch elitist comments that confirm why she lost. Mm-hmm. So it was somewhat surprising to hear her weigh in on the 2020 Democratic primary with a truly bizarre comment about it and attacking, of all people, Tulsi Gabbard. Clinton accused the Hawaii Congresswoman of being groomed by outside forces, saying, "I think they've got their eye on somebody who is currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third-party candidate. She's the favorite of the Russians." Mm-hmm. There is some dispute about whether Clinton meant it was the Russians or Republicans.
We'll get to that in just a minute.
Who were pushing a third-party Gabbard candidacy. But a Clinton spokesman asked about the comments replied, "If the nesting doll fits," clearly implying it was dastardly Russians. Mm-hmm. Gabbard immediately hit back hard, though, calling Clinton accurately the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption, personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long. While hosts of The View backed up Clinton, this bunch of old crackbirds, while hosts of The View backed up Clinton, calling Gabbard a useful idiot, others such as the Vermont Senator, our man Bernie, and South Bend's Mayor Pete Buttigieg suggest that Clinton ought to have some evidence before implying something so outrageous about a Democratic elected official.
Mm-hmm.
But Darren, it was typical Clinton. Paranoia about the Russian influence has been ubiquitous among the Clintons since 2016, in part because it helps explain how the loss to Donald Trump wasn't really Clinton's fault. Liberals in the media like Rachel Maddow openly admit to having an obsession with Russia and end up seeing the hands of Vladimir Putin on everything. Clinton herself has had trouble coming to terms with her loss, even though accounts from inside the campaign confirmed that Clinton barely knew why she was running for president, couldn't craft any kind of message, and were laughably overconfident decisions about where to campaign, like not coming to the Midwest, my words. So, Darren, it's easy. It's easy to take a shot at Tulsi. And it's not surprising, like you said a minute ago, this is vintage Clinton. What is sickening and what is really bothersome are the women on The View, are the pundits, the Democratic pundits are coming out and saying, yes, she is an asset. Tulsi's an asset. She's not knowingly an asset, but she's unwittingly, she is an asset of the Russians. I have an article, I'm not going to read it. I have an article that says everybody who doesn't suck the DNC sausage is a Russian asset.
They're just The View. I just can't stand them. You know what I hear every time I hear The View? More oligarch BS. Because that's what it is. You know what the ladies on The View have in common? What they all have in common? Wealth privilege. We've talked about it on this show. I'm going to keep hammering it until people actually start to listen to me. Wealth is the ultimate privilege above everything else, above sex, above race, above gender, above religion, above everything. If you're wealthy, you're all in one big club, and the rest of us aren't in it, as George Carlin used to say.
Yeah, folks, you're either totally on board with Hillary or you're liable to be attacked. There is plenty of rumors, Darren, that she's climbing back out of the crypt. She's going to get out of the dirt, brush herself off, and no better way, really, to kick out a resurgent campaign, which is absolutely ludicrous. I can't even barely say it. But there's no better way to kick it off than to come out swinging at the Russians.
Oh, of course.
That's been her redemption card. She'll play it. She'll continue to play it, even though it's getting laughable.
Well, I want to go on something that you added to your piece from The Guardian. Actually, who wrote that piece?
That was an opinion from The Guardian from the excellent writer who we have read before, Nathan Robinson.
Okay. I have this story. This is Mike Murphy, the editor at Market Watch. In a curious turn of events, a number of major news organizations ran corrections Wednesday night over week-old reports that sparked a testy war of words between Hillary Clinton and Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. Last week, a number of media organizations, including the New York Times, CNN, and Politico, ran reports saying Clinton told the podcast Campaign HQ with David Plouffe that Russians were grooming a female Democratic candidate, widely assumed to be Gabbard, for a third-party run to play a potential spoiler in the 2020 election. But apparently Clinton meant Republicans, not Russians, were doing the grooming. The New York Times ran this correction Wednesday night. Quote, an earlier version of this article described incorrectly an element of Hillary Clinton's recent comments about Representative Tulsi Gabbard. While Mrs. Clinton said that a Democratic presidential candidate was the favorite of the Russians, and an aide later confirmed the reference was to Ms. Gabbard, Mrs. Clinton's remark about the grooming of a third-party candidate in the 2020 race was in response to a question about the Republican strategy, not about Russian intervention, end of quote. Here's how the Associated Press wrote their correction. Quote, in a story October 18th about Tulsi Gabbard and Hillary Clinton, the Associated Press reported erroneously that Hillary Clinton said she believes the Russians have got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic Party and grooming her to be the third-party candidate. She was referring to Republicans, not Russians, according to an aide. End of quote. It was unclear Wednesday night how so many news reports misunderstood Clinton's quote or why it took so long to clarify the remarks. Either way, Clinton's comments were still a slam on Gabbard, who she referred to as a favorite of the Russians. Clinton also called former Green Party candidate Jill Stein a Russian asset. The reports last week sparked a furious response from Gabbard, a Hawaii Democrat, who in a tweet called Clinton, quote, the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption, and personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long, end of quote. So they've got a quote from the podcast here. We'll post this story on our official Facebook page. So if you go to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show, you'll find it there. Yeah, and it says right here, Russian asset. You know who's actually a Russian asset, Jack? Donald John Trump. Period. End of story. And we'll just get into the Russian asset a little bit here because he led the charge for us to get out of Syria so that the Turks, I should say, the Freudian slip there, right?
Yeah.
So that the Turks could go into northern Syria and start engaging in ethnic cleansing of the Kurds. You know who's carving up Syria? Turkey and Russia. Folks, I've got this right here. This is by The Economist, not a liberal newspaper or publication. This is, they're reporting out of Cairo and Istanbul. This is dated October 24th. 4 years after they were welcomed as protectors, American troops leaving northeast Syria received a less friendly send-off. As they drove out of the region, a surprise withdrawal ordered by Donald Trump earlier this month, angry locals pelted their armored cars with rocks and tomatoes. One man yelled, like rats. Yeah, like rats leaving a sinking ship. Well, in other words, well, I guess maybe another analogy to use is we're like rats and that we turned our backs on what are supposed to be allies.
Just like a rat. Yeah.
Drove the knife into their back. That's all Trump. Continuing the story, America's retreat cleared the way for Turkey to invade and dislodge a Kurdish militia, the People's Protection Units, that controlled the region. They're also called YPG. Backed by a raggedy crew of Syrian Arab mercenaries, the Turkish invasion was a fatal blow to Kurdish autonomy. The YPG had no choice but to seek protection from Bashar al-Assad, Syria's dictator, and surrender most of its self-rule in return.
Well, Darren, the blunder, the absolute moronic decision by Trump to pull out of the barrier in northern Syria rivals the foreign policy blunders of George Bush. Is he trying to take top position in that area? Even his own party. Mm-hmm. Even his own party. Even the scumbag down in Kentucky condemned
Mitch McConnell.
The withdrawal out of Syria.
But you think Mitch is going to do anything about it? He hasn't done anything else.
No, that dead turtle. The thing is, you see these heartbreaking pictures of kids and massacre of innocent civilians. And Trump had the audacity to come out this week. I don't know if you heard him. He came out and he said, hey, listen, they've been having a feud with the Islamic Nation. They've been fighting with the Syrians forever. We never signed up to protect them forever. So I mean, seriously, what a betrayal! Mm-hmm. What only a sociopath could even pull a stunt like that.
Psychopath. Let's just call Trump what he is. He's a psychopath.
That's every path but one that leads anywhere positive. He's that.
Yep. He pretty much is.
It's heartbreaking to see these pictures of these kids, these Kurds. These people have been fighting for decades bravely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've reported on some of the Kurds that have fought alongside the U.S.
Yeah.
It was a troop of women fighters. And I think we either talked about them on this show or our former sister show, Women Libs Radio.
And folks,
but I remember the conversation about them being so brave.
The list of cabinet members and advisors that Trump has stuck his knife right in their back is endless, okay? Mm-hmm. It goes on and it goes on. And someday it'll be our backs. Someday it will be our backs. To save his sick identity, he'll stab us in the back in the form of a war, nobody is safe.
Yeah.
People are talking about the history books that are going to be written on Trump. I go, maybe not. there may not be any more history books.
Yeah.
Don't think that's the answer, is to wait until you get some bad remarks there in his library in